It's gonna sound fucking nuts, but this is actually the God's honest truth. You need 10 mil. If you really want what I guess most would consider to be financial freedom, you need $10 million liquid. Now I know you're like, oh no, that's more than I need. I don't need 10 million, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so first off, let's define, make sure I'm not getting run over. Let's define what financial freedom is, right? I think personally, at least for me, financial freedom is ultimately the ability to generate income and the ability to make a high level of income without needing to actually work, right? That's what most would consider to be financial freedom. It's one thing to make a ton of money. It's another thing to need to work all year, all day, all week, all month to actually make that certain level of income that you're making, right? So what people really want is this idea of passive income. I want to make money passively. I want to make money passively. The only way, okay, for you to make money passively, it's friggin' seatbelt. The only way to make money passively is if you can make money actively and then purchase investments that are then passive, right? Most people get this shit twisted. So if you're someone that wants to make $1 million a year passively, the S&P 500 historically, which is basically a collection of the 500 biggest companies that are publicly listed as stocks, the biggest 500 of them, if you purchase, is going to give you roughly 10% a year as a historical average return. So if you have $10 million in the S&P 500, that should be giving you about $1 million a year, because $1 million is 10% of 10 million. Okay. And that 10% return is going to pay you at the million. So the cool thing is you would never, ever, ever even need to utilize the 10 million that you made. You'd be living off the $1 million a year that you'd be making off the S&P 500, the historical yield and return that you'd be making off the S&P, which is freaking huge. That's $1 million a year. Think about that. So for you to make $1 million a year, you need to get to 10 million. First, obviously, if you're a dead broke beginner, you need to get to $1 million. Because if you get to $1 million in the S&P or another safe asset, if you're at $1 million, 10% on $1 million is 100,000. 100,000 a year passively is better than nothing. So how the fuck do you get the million? If you do research and if you take a look at the ways that historically, and especially now in the last 10, 15 years, people are becoming millionaires at a young age, it's not through old financial vessels and vehicles like real estate. It's not real estate. It's online business, and that's a fact. You could argue it, you could say what you want. It's online business, it's social media, it's entrepreneurship. That's how people are getting access to the cash, which they then utilize to then go buy assets. Now, what I did is I started a marketing company with my brother that goes by the name of Del Priori Hospitality, and I'm actually in the wedding industry. So I make my money in a very, very, very unique way that most people can't even fathom. And people think that I sell drugs and scam people because I'm a multimillionaire at 20 years old in the wedding industry and in the hospitality industry. It's a very unique way to make money, significant sums of it by my age, my brother and I, but that's how we did it. If you want, you could do more research on how we've actually done that. Now, for me, I have not saved 10 million yet. I have saved a couple million, and I have my assets mainly invested into things like Bitcoin, the S&P 500, like I said. Then I have other tech stocks that I've purchased and things of that nature. But if I was someone that was dead broke, dead broke, what I would do is I would focus on the first 100K. Once you get the first 100K, you got to hit a 10X. You got to go from 100K to a mil. Once you have the million, 10% on a million is 10K a month at 10% in the S&P 500. Once you can 10X that, if you have $10 million, if you can comfortably live on $1 million a year, that's where you have to decide what is financial freedom for you. If you have 10 million, are you just going to keep working aimlessly to be like, hey, I'm the hardest worker in the room? Being the hardest worker in the room is not a flex. I see a lot of laborers outside here today cutting grass. They probably work harder than I do, but they don't have a fraction of the money that I have. And that's because they don't have the information, the resources, or the opportunity. So in certain ways, you guys have to think about, do you want to just grind your whole life for money? Or do you want to find that number that's most important to you, hit that number, and then say, hey, if I had this, I would retire, right? So for most people, I think that number should be 10 million, especially if you're an average person. My number is a lot higher than that. I would need 100, if not a couple 100 million to actually retire, because I personally enjoy the sport of business. I love entrepreneurship, and I'm excited to keep building big and badass companies. It's something that I actually like to do. So I see it like sport. It's almost like tell Tiger Woods to stop golfing. Like, you might not want to do it. If he actually enjoys it, he enjoys it. I personally love building businesses, so I don't want to stop doing that. So I would need to be very, very, very well off, and I will be very, very, very well off. But I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. I think the average person that starts an online business, specifically like a marketing agency, or finds a vessel for them to make good money, can hit that 10 mil. Once you hit the 10 mil, maybe it takes you 10, 15 years. You decide at that point if you want to retire and enjoy life for what it is and stop hustling. I don't know, just my 2 cents.